We have arrived at the popular Sepang International Circuit in Kuala Lumpur for the running of the Malaysian Grand Prix, the final Far East Asian race of the season. Coming into this week, one driver has been making the news this week. The only team news for this week comes from Williams, as they have announced after so much speculation that 2016 DTM champion and current World Champ Car Championship leader Julius Anderson will return to the series for a fourth stint and for a second stint with Williams in 2023. Julius has had an amazing season in World Champ Car, despite 2 consecutive races not going according to plan. As mentioned, he currently leads the World Champ Car standings by 18 points ahead of Gabriel Gomez, and his team Penske lead the team's championship by only 10 points ahead of Andretti Autosport. After yet again missing out on a top class seat for 2022, Julius, along with being the Renault reserve driver, has spent this season competing in World Champ Car, where he has been in a close fight with fellow DTM champion Gabriel Gomez. So far, the Swedish driver has achieved 3 wins this season, with him recently reclaiming the lead in the championship after mechanical problems for Gabriel Gomez at Monza. Julius will be happy to know that he'll be back in the top class next season, and he will be hoping the 2023 Williams is a lot better than the 2022 Williams, and he hopes this time to stick around in the top class for a lot longer than 1 season. He'll partner alongside Felix Sonntag, who was announced to be remaining at the team for another season after missing out on the second Renault seat to Johannes Martins. This means, as expected, Jamie Griffiths will be leaving the team at the end of the season, as a result of him making it clear in his sign-ups that he wants to leave the team at the end of 2022. Jamie is linked with a possible move to Lamborghini, however his chances are slim due to the tricky season the Welshman has had this season. Other contenders for Lamborghini range from current Lamborghini reserve driver and 5-time world champion Florian Volker, current DTM championship contender Rubino Gonzalez should he miss out on Toyota, current Formula E championship contender Robert Ionescu, current Haas driver Michael Mocho should he be booted out by Haas, and current F2 championship contender Jafari Blackwood should he also miss out on Toyota like Rubino Gonzalez and also the renamed Sauber team. It will be interesting to see what lineup Lamborghini ends up with for 2023. And that is it for this week's edition of the GP4 OC News. The next team news will break next week at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Who will be announced next? Tune in to practice next Tuesday at the final US GP at Austin before the Grand Prix moves to Road America. Hello everybody and welcome to round 16 of the 2022 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the popular Sepang International Circuit in Kuala Lumpur for the running of the Malaysian Grand Prix with a very old thumbnail in the background which hopefully will get changed before qualifying. I am JW97 and I am joined just like yesterday during the Formula E qualifying session by a resident of Malaysia, Hyun.
Hey, what's up? My hometown. I'm back home.
Yes, indeed. Obviously, you were commentating with me yesterday for the FE qualifying session, but given it's your home race, you obviously decided to do commentary for practice and qualifying on this occasion, really. So, might as well ask you whilst you're here, of course. Have you watched much of the top class this season?
Currently, I'm mostly watching on the highlights since the I tried to watch it on full race. But unfortunately, because of the time issues, I had to go to sleep very early. So I kind of missed that.
Well, luckily, of course, your time zone kind of matches up with practice and qualifying, of course. Of course, you won't be here for the race tomorrow. I think you've mentioned as well, if I'm not mistaken. But
yes, indeed, because that time, it was already 12 a.m.
Okay, fair enough then. But anyway, we're about to get underway for practice. The first car on track is Amelia Wilson in the Alfa Romeo. Of course, her penultimate race, of course, in the top class before she retires after her home race next time out at Austin. And still some speculation as to who will be replacing her next season. Of course, we know that Gabriel Gomez is, of course, the reserve driver for the team. But, of course, he has made it clear in the past that he likes to focus on World Champ Car. So whether or not that's still the case this time we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, Wilson is the first on the track. There are a few more cars that have made their way out on the racetrack, and of course, so obviously we might as well talk about the news, that just came out. Of course, Julius Anderson will be returning to the series next season, and after what has been a very good season, but he's returning to Williams for what is his second stint, of course. The last time he raced with Williams, of course, was back in 2017. It was actually the team he actually got his last podium for, as well at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix of that season. So he's kind of returning home, is Julius, to Williams, and he'll be hoping that he can stay in the top class a little bit longer. And as mentioned in the news video, he will be hoping that the Williams for 2023 will be a lot better than what it is this season in 2022. I mean, if the trend is anything to go by, because Williams have an upward trend for next season, then in theory they should have a better car. A better car. My voice decided to go into limbo mode there, but sorry about that. I don't know what on earth happened to my voice there, but he'll be hoping that the car is better than what this year's Williams has been capable to do. But Julius back, and as mentioned, Ryan, he'll be hoping to stick around for a lot longer.
Well, my prayers will go to Julius if he performs well for the Williams.
Indeed, of course, he will partner alongside Felix Sontag next season, so a pretty strong lineup at Williams in 2023, and both of them will be hoping that the car is better than last season. Of course, the tyres we're using here at the Sepang International Circuit is the yellow medium tyres, so it will be interesting to see. Of course, Yui did mention to me about the strategy just before we went on the air, of course, that usually, of course, when it comes to the soft and hards, it's kind of been a little bit predictable as to which strategy is usually the way to go, but with the medium tyres, it's a bit of a mystery, as Yui pointed to me. One stop, two stop, and a free stop could be a good strategy. However, Yui has mentioned to me that the AI are probably more likely to go for a two-stop around here at Sepang. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on when it comes to the strategy department in tomorrow's race. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there. We're looking at George Roke, meanwhile, who's, I think, just making a little lock-up into there, but it's a good job the camera's picked up George Roke here, because, of course, he finally, after many attempts, finally won a race as a Red Bull driver, picking up what was a dominant victory last time out at the Japanese Grand Prix.
Wow, that was impressive for George Roke after a lot of attempts trying to win, but the winning always slipped out, but this time he finally got it.
At long last, he's been waiting a while. Of course, there has been a couple of occasions this season where he probably should have won, of course. I mean, the Korean Grand Prix springs to mind, as does, the Korean Grand Prix is the main one that springs to mind, where he was dominating that race before he got took out by a back marker, and then it allowed Franco Lopez to take the victory in the end. So it's going to be interesting as Kupok, who's just at a purple middle stop there, just has a little bit of a moment coming out of the hairpin as he's coming up behind Mikolas Gau. It was a good race entirely for Red Bull, really. It was a 1-2 finish at the Japanese Grand Prix, and it was Evan Byrne picking up second place in the end after, it seemed that for some reason Omar Kodjis didn't have the pace to catch up to Evan Byrne at the end of that race, and it allowed Red Bull to get a 1-2 finish, which in turn now means the team lead the Constructors' Championship because of what happened to Evan Byrne's rival in that race, of course, which has landed one particular guy with a grid penalty. And I should point out as well, there are two drivers that have got grid penalties for the Malaysian Grand Prix, and we'll get on to those in just a little bit. But of course, Franco Lopez, it's a weekend, it was a Japanese Grand Prix to forget. The pace, for some reason, just wasn't there for him last time out at Suzuka, and he ended up in the end having a crash with Mikolas Gau, who tried to go for a move into the Degner curves, and he ended up losing the back end, and as such took the pair of them out of the race, which in turn has led to Mikolas Gau having a 5-place grid penalty for this race.
Oh man, that was a bad luck.
Bad luck for Lopez indeed, and as a result, the championship has closed right up again between Lopez and Byrne. The gap now 1 point between the pair of them going into this race. So it will be interesting to see how the championship looks like coming out of this race at the Malaysian Grand Prix, because there could be a good chance that we might end up with a new championship leader once again. Byrne could possibly retake the lead in the championship if he has a good weekend here at Malaysia, but at the moment Lopez currently at the top of the standings by 1/10 of a second ahead of Jake Galloway, who's had a pretty good first few laps at the moment in the Ferrari. Of course, Galloway did win here last season, let's not forget. He took his second ever victory here last season, of course. It was during that run where he went on to have that amazing end of the season he had, where he picked up 4 wins out of the 5 races that he visited. Those 5 races, of course, being Yeognam, Sepang, Mexico and Bahrain, of course. So it was a very enjoyable time, but whether or not he's able to do that this time, I'm not sure, because this season's Ferrari has definitely been, safe to say, a little bit worse compared to last season's Ferrari.
Oh, wait. So this season they didn't have a win before?
They haven't had a win this season so far, and that's mainly because the car has not been up to pace really with the likes of the Red Bulls, Mercedes, and even at times the Renaults as well. Because of course Renault did have a victory. Have had a victory this season at the Chinese Grand Prix with Jesus Perinen, and at times have unsettled the top two teams on some occasions. But yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting one indeed to see whether or not Galloway can actually put on a good performance here in Sepang. Not sure about the win, but it's definitely something to worth note about. But the other driver, we've talked about how Miklos Gall's got a 5-place grid penalty for this race. Another driver that's also got a 5-place grid penalty is Bartosz Kloss. He caused an accident last time out with Bence Valdinga at Spoon Curve, and he will also have to take a 5-place grid penalty for qualifying a little bit later on. So that's two drivers we'll need to keep an eye on when it comes to qualifying a little bit later on to see where on earth they'll end up on the grid. But yeah, weekends to forget for both Gal and Kloss at Suzuka.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna find out in the qualifying when these two drivers who got a grid penalty can do.
Yep, indeed. As George wrote, they're just overtaking one of the Aston Martins going up towards turn 4 there. As we're now looking at Perinen, who looks like he's having a little bit of a lockup going through there. In fact, a way big lockup. He's actually gone wide going out of the corner.
Oh,
He nearly came to blows there with Bartosz Kloss there. And, well, that was a little bit too close for comfort there, you must say, Hyen.
yeah, indeed. If if close crash because of the mistake from the one with Renault, then well, that'll be a disaster.
Yeah, it would have been, because that would have been his session done with, of course, because of the spare car ban that we have in the OC, and well, it would have been, it would have definitely put his practice, it would have put his running here at Sepang on the little bit of a back foot. The same could have been said for Perinen if he took him out there, but thankfully they both got away with that one without any issues whatsoever. Miklos Gal, meanwhile, trying to overtake one of the Alfa Romeos up the hill. I think this is Bence Valdinga who's trying to overtake his fellow compatriot, of course, as Gal tries to have a look at the Alfa Romeo there, but can't make the move stick, and of course, like with Kloss, he'll need to bounce back, of course, here at Malaysia after he made that driver error whilst fighting with Franco Lopez at the Japanese Grand Prix, which has obviously landed him with a 5-place grid penalty. Speaking of Lopez, he's currently getting slipstream from his teammate Amar Kar, as he's currently at the top of the standings at this stage. There's a double lock-up there for Miklos Gal going into the hairpin. Whilst one AlphaTauri didn't have a weekend to forget at Suzuka, the other one had a fantastic weekend. David Kupop managing to get 4th place last time out at the Japanese Grand Prix, and definitely putting in the results that he needed, really, because of course, as we know, he's fighting for a Sauber seat for next season, and there are a load of contenders for Sauber next season, and well, Kupop is hoping he gets one of those drivers, of course, given that AlphaTauri are pulling out at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's really sad news to see that Alpha is leaving. But oh, whoa, that was close.
Was close indeed. There was contact there between Griffiths, who, of course, let's not forget, got a podium here 2 seasons ago, and one of the Alfa Romeos there. Not sure which Alfa Romeo it was. It might have been Bence Valdinga, in fact, that made the collision as going into turn 1. Griffiths overtakes Gal into turn 1 there, not wasting any time whatsoever. But yeah, obviously sad that we'll see AlphaTauri go after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Of course, we did get, it was revealed by Yuri, I think, a couple of weeks ago that AlphaTauri will be taking part in the end of season test, but with a twist. So I guess they'll get one more final farewell before they leave the top class for good after 2022, of course. And obviously their vacancy has been taken by the returning Toyota team, which is of course the team that Franco Lopez will be driving for next season. Still a little bit of a mystery as to who will be his teammate though for next season. Could it be Jesus Perinen? Could it be the likes of maybe even Rubino Gonzalez, Jafari Blackwood, or even Gabriel Gomez? It's going to be quite interesting indeed. I think a lot of that could really come down to what happens with one of the Mercedes seats, of course, because as we know, with Lopez going to Toyota, it does leave a vacancy at Mercedes for next season, but it could be both, of course, given that both Roke and Amar Kar are currently fighting for the second Red Bull seat alongside Evan Byrne, so it could end up being 2 seats available at Mercedes in 2023, but of course we'll have to wait and see on that over the next few weeks, of course, what sort of direction that kind of goes into.
Wow, that'd be very interesting to see that on two of the teams on each 2 teams on the top classes has like 1 vacant seats. So, well, we'll find out who will be alongside on the designated drivers then.
Yep, indeed. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out for the last few years. A lot of people, I think, predicting that those seats could come down to the final news of the season, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. As De Rosa now then making his way around the right-hander, as well at the moment we've got a little bit of game lag because at the moment Yuri is typing something to us on the Discord there, so everything is in a little bit slow-mo for us at the moment. But yeah, that's that really, as De Rosa making his way through the flat-out left-hander. We're now looking at Felix Sontag now then in the Williams, as he currently finds himself going around the right-hander. And okay, Yuri, I won't reveal that bit, of course, because it's not that relevant to the stream. But anyway, as now coming out of the right-hander now, then we go. As we now look at Jamie Griffiths now, then he's just making his way out the turn. The other Williams driver is currently holding up a train of cars at the moment, coming down towards his hairpin. One of them being a Haas and the other one being a Ferrari. That Ferrari being Jake Galloway, as I can tell with the helmet there. As Lopez coming back in at the end of this lap. Lopez, of course, determined to bounce back after the disaster that was the Japanese Grand Prix last time out. But yeah, that's pretty much that really, as he's just coming out of the right-hander now on the track. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with Mercedes next season. Could we potentially see either the likes of Laura Chung, Joseph Willows, or even Jesus Perinen in one of those cars next season? Could Armar Carr still be there if he misses out on Red Bull, of course? We'll have to wait and see on that one, really. We're riding on board with Michael Mocho, and it's fair to say that looking at the stream chat, and even Yuri pointed it out before we went on the air, of course, that a lot of people seem to be only just realised or a little bit surprised that Mocho is also a contender for Lamborghini. Well, yeah, he is a contender. It's just I never really mentioned it in the first episode because I didn't think there would be a reason, but there we are, really. I've obviously included that on this occasion. Also, you've got to remember as well that sometimes there are some things, because usually in the pilot episode as well, there's a lot of things to get through as well, because even Yuri's pointing it out that if I went through every candidate for every team, it would probably end up being a 24-hour news video, and I don't think anybody would want that. So it has to be cut short there. So yeah, that's why some people usually get left out. But I've said many times in the past, even if your name doesn't get popped up in contention for another seat, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not a contender. It just simply means that, well, I didn't have time to go through it, really. But whilst we were talking there, QPOC, surprisingly, has just gone to the top of the timing sheets in the AlphaTauri on a 129.449, so QPOC to the top. Patel is in fourth, and of course for QPOC, this place has got some happy memories for him, because this was the place where he got his first ever podium, of course, back in 2020. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if he can actually put in a good result here at Sepang as well. Of course, AlphaTauri had a pretty strong weekend at Suzuka, because even before Gal's driver error with Lopez, they were looking good to get some very good points in their fight for what is fourth position in the Constructors' Championship. And they probably would have got fourth in the Constructors if it wasn't for Gal's error there, because, well, they probably would have got up to fourth, but they haven't in the end. Haas is still in fourth at the moment in the Constructors' Championship. As we're currently right on board with George Roke at the moment, who's making his way towards the hairpin now then on the racetrack. As Chatfield now goes to the top of the timing sheets. Meanwhile, QPOC's former teammate with a 129.394. As now Roke, of course, will be coming back into the pits at the end of this lap now then. And so, as Roke making his way through the flat-out left and right-hander, of course, we will be seeing him peel into the pits this lap, as he'll be looking to see if he can try and make it 2 wins in a row, after winning, of course, last time out at the Japanese Grand Prix. Michael Mocho, meanwhile, I think has just been overtaken there by Jake Galloway going into turn 4, but it looks like Mocho wants to re-overtake him here into the double right-hander, but Galloway's not going to let him go, and Mocho might actually come under pressure from his own teammate Barches Kloss in just a little bit. Of course, we know that Kloss is obviously staying at Haas next season, but the question remaining is who will be his teammate. Will it still be Michael Mocho, or could it be either the likes of Laura Chung or Miklos Gal, who we were alluding to a little bit earlier on? We'll have to wait and see on that one, as Evan Byrne now goes to the top of the timing sheets with a 1:29.256 in at the Red Bull. Goes a 10th clear of Chris Chatfield now then, to Byrne to the top of the timing screens. I wonder if Lopez has a response for when he comes back out onto the track or not. As Quad goes 5th, meanwhile, on the Renault. We're looking at Kirishima De Rosa, and it's fair to say at Japan, once again, McLaren reliability definitely a pain for them, and as a result, thanks to Amelia Wilson getting points at the Japanese Grand Prix, it now means that Alfa Romeo have got back ahead of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship on a countback. So, yeah, for McLaren, really, even though their pace has been pretty decent, and in race trim, that is, definitely the one-lap pace has definitely been a problem for McLaren this season, but the race pace has been decent for them. It's been very clear that their reliability has definitely held them back this season.
It seems like BMW curse from Formula E travels all the way to Formula One in here in top class. The curse still remains.
Indeed, and just answering a question from Maggle, yeah, there are 5 races after this one, of course. So after this race at Sepang, we've got 5 more races for 2022, which of course are Kota, Mexico, Bahrain, the Balcarce circuit for the first ever Argentine Grand Prix, and of course Abu Dhabi, which will play host to the finale, of course. Will we have a title decider there in Abu Dhabi? We'll have to wait and see. Carl, meanwhile, only going up to 9th, meanwhile, in the Mercedes, so a little bit off so far on his lap time so far in the Mercedes. His teammate Lopez currently 4th at the moment, but of course Lopez, I've just noticed, has come back out on the track, so we'll have to wait and see if he can try and possibly respond to Burns' time of a 1:29.256. But yeah, it could be quite an interesting qualifying if the order is as it is come the end of it, of course, for the Ferrari and the AlphaTauris, because they look pretty strong around here so far, do Ferrari and AlphaTauri. So we'll have to wait and see if that translates into qualifying or not. We're running on board with Juventus Martins, who's just being overtaken there by one of the McLarens there into the final turn. But yeah, that's that. Martins, of course, will be driving for. Oh, hang on, Wilson's having a bit of a moment.
Oh, she spun.
Has spun indeed, and well, clearly pushing a little bit too hard there in the Alfa Romeo, but thankfully she doesn't rejoin dangerously into the path of another car there. But yeah, Wilson off the track, and well, that's not how she wanted her practice session to go there at the moment. But luckily she has kept it out of harm's way, and she's able to rejoin. But yeah, a little bit of a scare there for Amelia Wilson coming out of that double right-hander there. But that
corner. That corner has a trouble every each trouble, but I also had a trouble on that corner as well.
Yeah, it has actually been a bit of a troublemaker the last few couple of seasons. I mean, we have seen drivers making mistakes at that double right-hander. Drivers clearly pushing a bit too hard to find more speed around that part of the track, and clearly Wilson trying to test the limits there coming out of the double right-hander. But yeah, that's that really.
I hope you didn't hear the background noise a few seconds ago, because that was my little brother Ko Jong Cheong, who just came in my room and tried to ruin the fun.
All right. Anyway, as Chris Chatfield nailed in, and so you can see there's a big train of cars coming out of the right-hander there, as well, they're now coming around the flat out as Lopez does respond to Evan Byrne. He now goes back to the top with a 1:29.045, so he goes 2 tenths clear of his nearest rival in the Drivers' Championship as this train of cars continues to form, going down into this final corner onto the support pit straight. This is because on the left-hand side you can see that is used as a pit lane, as now coming around the final corner. There we go. Chatfield getting really held up here, and might actually get traction here off the Williams. In fact, the Williams looks like it's going to be mugged coming out of that corner. I wonder how old those tyres that I wonder how long that Williams has been out on track for. It must be on very old tyres. That is Jamie Griffiths, of course, we're alluding to there, as Chatfield gets by on Bence Valding into the first corner there. And, well, obviously this track is very overtake-friendly, it's fair to say. We have seen quite a lot of overtakes around this circuit over the last few seasons, of course. Obviously, we came back here for the first time in 2020 for obvious reasons, of course. And and since then, it has produced some very good racing. It's safe to say after, well, 2017, it kind of left on a sour note, really, for Hoshiri. But since it's came back in 2020, it's actually produced some very good races for the OC. And it's actually earned its place back in the OC, it's fair to say. Of course, we will still be racing here next season, of course. It will still be on the calendar in 2023. Once again, being round 16 of the championship. So that's that. As Chatfield, meanwhile, coming up to the back of one of the Aston Martins as they come out of the hairpin there. As he's actually coming into the pits at the end of this lap is Chris Chatfield. So that's pretty much that. As Griffiths, I think, looking at the laps, he's only been out there for 10 laps. So clearly he's struggling a little bit with maybe tyre deg in that Williams, it's fair to say, because it looked like it said 10 laps for some of the other cars that were in that that was in that train a little bit earlier on, but it just seems like maybe the Williams is just struggling a little bit when it comes to tyre degradation. I'm not really sure, to be honest, but yeah, that's that really. As meanwhile, Roke goes up into third place. Meanwhile, in the Red Bull, he gets himself in front of Chris Chatfield as a whole bunch of cars make their way into the pits. Valdinger in along with two other cars in front. But that's that really, as Valdinger makes his way into pit lane with just over 20 minutes to go in this practice session. As here is George Roke now. Then he's just coming around the right-hander. It just looked like he had a little bit of oversteer coming around that part of the track. But that's that really, as he's down on his personal best in Sector 1. Only by 10,000 of a second though, so maybe without that mistake he could have been up on his personal best. But unfortunately we're probably not going to know that. So we've just done the 20 minutes to go. This is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. It's Lopez at the top with Byrne in second, Roke in third with Chatfield fourth, and then, well, as I was just about to say, fifth, Mocho goes up into fifth position. He improves there. So Mocho is in fifth with Kupok sixth, Quag in seventh, then it is Galloway in eighth, Willows ninth, Patel in 10th, Carr down in 11th, so clearly still needs to pick up the speed in that Mercedes, with Gall in 12th, Valdinger in 13th, with Wilson in 14th, Videri 15th, Chung is in 16th position, as Byrne now goes to the top of the timing sheets, with Kloss 17th, Perrin in 18th, Martins 19th, Griffiths 20th, De Rosa 23rd, and Sontag in 22nd position. The pack currently separated by 2.8 seconds at this stage now then, as Byrne actually broke into the 1 minute 28, whilst we're talking there, 1 minute 28.709 for the Irishman, as he goes 3 tenths clear of Franco Lopez. Lopez currently splitting the two Red Bull drivers in this session, as Roke actually found some time in the middle sector to go up on his personal best. Is he going to improve on this occasion across the line? And nope, loses time in the last sector and remains in third place, still 6 tenths of teammate Evan Byrne at this stage, as Roke does everything he can to try and see if he can get retained by Red Bull for next season. Of course, if he doesn't end up at Red Bull, there is a chance he could end up being Chris Chatfield's teammate at Ferrari next season, but of course we'll have to wait and see how the remaining of the season pans out really. And so it will be interesting to see what happens with both Red Bull, in fact with Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari and a few other teams around on the grid as well, especially Toyota as well, who could be Franco Lopez's teammate in 2023. That will be very interesting to watch as well. As now we look at George Roke now then, he's just coming around the double right-hander on the racetrack now then. So now he will make his way down towards the hairpin now then, as he's down on his personal best. I think just trying to get some running in that car. I should point out as well, I think Evan Byrne's helmet, from what I remember, hasn't been changed yet. Of course, the livery for Red Bull has been changed back to its original livery, but in terms of Evan's helmet, I think that hasn't been changed back yet to his normal helmet, because the helmet that we ran at Suzuka was a one-off helmet, so that should be fixed before qualifying, I'm sure. There's a big lock up there for Videri going around into the right-hander there, as the Italian had to use a bit of curb on the outside there to avoid going off the track. But 3 cars currently in the pit lane, Chatfield, Quag and Willows at this stage. And so that's pretty much that really, as Ferrari definitely getting some points on the board last time out at Suzuka, whilst on the topic of Ferrari. And of course, because the previous 2 races, of course, they failed to score points to the point where the team fell down to 7th in the Constructors, but they scored some strong points last time out at Suzuka, which has lifted them up to 6th now, and has pushed Lamborghini down to 7th in the Constructors' Championship. That battle for 4th place between those 4 teams of Haas, AlphaTauri, Ferrari and Lamborghini definitely getting hotting up, definitely, in these remaining 6 races of the 2022 season, as we see Valdinger just coming around the first couple of corners on the racetrack. Currently 13th and 14th for the 2 Alfa Romeo drivers, as we look at George Roke, who's just making his way around the double right-hander there on the racetrack, as he tried to find a way through there on that was Kirishima De Rosa, but unable to, so his lap kind of compromised there. As we're on a more with Valdinger, 6 tenths down in the first sector, and currently 13th at the moment for him. And of course he was involved in that accident last time out with Bartosz Kloss at the Japanese Grand Prix. You mentioned that a little bit earlier on, which is why Kloss has got the penalty. Valdinger has a bit of a moment going through into the double right-hander there. So that's that for the Hungarian driver, as he now makes his way into the hairpin on the racetrack. But yeah, that's that. As we now look at George Roke now then in the Red Bull, as he will now try and find his way through, as he now makes his way into the final corner, as he still hasn't been able to find a way through on De Rosa at the moment. Might be trying to get him onto the pit straight, perhaps. We'll have to wait and see. He's going to actually try and have a go on the pit straight if he can, but he's opted to go for the outside for some reason, and that's not the best side you want to go in if you want to overtake someone. And once again, Roki's going to get held up by De Rosa as a direct result of that. But yeah, that's that really. But yeah, Kloss, of course, with the 5-place grid penalty for that crash he had with Valdinger at the last race in Suzuka. So we'll obviously have some work to do after qualifying, of course. Is Roke going to get by on De Rosa this time by? He is indeed. So he's been able to clear him on this occasion as he now makes his way through into the left and right-hander now then as Valdinger gets overtaken there by one of the Renaults. And looks like, again, the Renaults struggling a bit with consistency at the moment because, again, got the similar thing that we've got going on in practice. We've got Quarg up in 7th and we've got Perinen down in 18th position for some reason. So again, a bit of inconsistency for Renault, and it wasn't exactly the best of weekends for Renault last time out at Suzuka because, of course, obviously they initially Perinen looked very strong at the beginning of the race, but he then ended up getting caught in traffic and ended up finishing 7th. And his teammate Roman Quarg, of course, I think ended up finishing no, in fact, Perinen finished 5th in the end, but the pace was nowhere, to be honest. His car actually finally sets a representative time and goes up into 3rd position, 4 tenths off of Evan Byrne. But yeah, for Roman Quarg, it was a race to forget as well because he actually had a mechanical problem towards the end of the race, which he had to pit for repairs for, and he ended up only finishing, I think in the end, it was 7th in the race. So yeah, it would have been 9th, of course, if the Lopez Gal crash didn't happen, of course, at the Degners, but of course we know that ended up happening. So yeah, that's pretty much that really, as Valdinger now then making his way down the back straight. So yeah, that's that really. And so as we now look towards the final corner, looks like the Renault, they're trying to have a go at the Williams in the final turn, but it's not going to work out there. As well, in fact, Griffiths goes wide, and well, he's been out there on the track for quite a while, has the Welshman Jamie Griffiths, and he has been really, really struggling with tyres, but finally he's going to get rid of those tyres. He'll be coming into the pits at the end of this lap, as it looks like Valdinger is actually going to overtake him into the first corner, which he does. So that's that for Valdinger as they make their way through into turns 1 and 2. On the racetrack now then, as Griffiths now then makes his way through into turn 3. And so that's that really, as Valdinger makes his way up towards turn 4. But yeah, that's that really. 3 cars in the pits, Byrne, Mocho and Vaderi at this stage. As so far, Byrne with quite a comfortable gap. So far the only driver at the moment to be in the 1 minute 28, Hyun.
Yeah, that was a very shocking lap time, if you ask me. Nobody, I never seen no one ever. I've never seen someone who get the 3 tenths even faster here in Malaysia, unless I'm wrong because I haven't watched on the last season lap time.
Well, that's forgivable, really. But in terms of the pace of the cars, it has been a bit of a talking point throughout the season, really, in terms of how fast these cars have been. Even Kurisu even pointed it out a few times in the commentary, just how quick these cars have been this season. They've been probably, I mean, we talk about how the 2009 cars have been very, very quick in the past for the OC, but I think these cars have definitely been a lot quicker than that, if I'm being honest with you. Obviously, we're not expecting these cars to be fast next season. We are expecting the cars to be slowed down a bit in 2023, but yeah, either way, these cars have been very, very quick this season, and well, that's why they've been setting quite a lot of track records in 2022. Meanwhile, Roman Quarg has improved to go into 7th place in the Renault, so that's that for the Renault driver at this stage. Currently 7 tenths off of Evan Byrne at this stage.
Oh, I'll be right back.
Okay, as Bence Valdinger now then is coming back into the pits this time. Looks like De Rosa's holding up a car there coming around the double right-hander. I think it might have been a Haas that was trying to find a way through there into the corner as we ride on board with Kirishima De Rosa as he makes his way into the hairpin. But yeah, that's that really, as De Rosa now then comes around the right-hander now they're on the racetrack as they now make their way through into the next right-hander, using a bit of curb on the inside. Now looking at Valdinger, who's, of course, coming into the pits this time by in the Alfa Romeo. Of course, we know this is Alfa Romeo's last season, of course, before they revert back to the Sauber name. Alfa Romeo, of course, splitting up with Sauber at the end of this season. But, of course, they will still...
Sorry about that.
welcome back, as they will still retain the Ferrari engines for next season. We're looking at Kloss now, and that was the driver who was stuck behind Kirishima De Rosa. Of course, Kloss and De Rosa were teammates, of course, back in 2015 for Haas, but things have since changed then between the last 7 seasons. Of course, Kloss has been a Grand Prix winner, and De Rosa, unfortunately, still hasn't been able to win a race in the OC. Came close to doing so last season, but of course, he ended up having a bit of an incident at Portimao last season, which kind of prevented McLaren from getting a 1-2 last season. But yeah, how times have really changed for McLaren since they switched to BMW power. So yeah, they'll be hoping that the car is better next season. Of course, we know that De Rosa is staying at McLaren for 2023, but whether this guy we're looking at the moment, Joseph Willows, ends up staying at McLaren next season, it's going to be another question. Of course, we know he's linked with a move to Mercedes for next season, along with the likes of Laura Chong and Miklos Gal, and of course Jesus Perinen, and of course Amar Kar as well. Quite a few contenders there for Mercedes, so it will be interesting to see how that one kind of fares, really, as Willow's making his way into the first couple of turns now. Then, as of course, he could still be at McLaren next season, as mentioned with Willows, but it kind of all really depends on the Mercedes situation. But if he doesn't, then we could maybe see the likes of either like Brandon Jackson potentially getting the second McLaren seat. We know he's linked where. Who knows, really? Maybe even Nicholas Zorbach. He could be linked with a move there if he misses out on Haas, but we'll have to wait and see on that one, really, what happens with McLaren. As whoa, car is a bit of a moment going around the right-hander there, with a little bit of oversteer coming out of the turn. As you look at Q-Pock, is now actually trying to find a way through on the other McLaren of Kirishima De Rosa. Looks like he's also got Galway on, but De Rosa is coming into the pits at the end of this lap. As, of course, usually when it comes to qualifying, hopefully this is not the case too much during qualifying, but usually in Q1, we do kind of see some incidents involving the pit lane entrance. Hopefully that's not going to be the case too much, of course, but as mentioned, of course, it will not, if there are incidents involving the pit entrance during qualifying, of course, it will not it will not affect anything when it comes to the spare car ban, really. So yeah, the spare car ban will not come into an effect if that is the case, really, because of course it's a class as a bug, really. So it's only if it happens on the racetrack, really, where the spare car ban would come into an effect, not because of a pit lane incident. So we now look at Q-Pock now. Then he's just making his way around the right-hander now. Then so now he makes his way to the double right-hander. We will go. As Q-Pot now then is going to be approaching the hairpin. Looks like Gal's going to try and find a way through into that hairpin. Careful your teammates, guys, so don't be bumping into each other. As now making our way through into these next section of corners. As kind of hearing some background noise at the moment there, High, if I'm being totally honest. But
yeah, I believe that was like I told you before, that was a fan noise.
Okay, well, sometimes it keeps dipping in and out, the fan noise, so yeah, it doesn't keep. It sometimes comes through the microphone, it sometimes doesn't. It clearly can't make its mind up on a few occasions. But anyway, as now we look at Gal, who's just overtaking David Q-Pock into the final corner. So that's that, really. As so he's letting Gal through there. So we've just over 8 minutes to go in this practice session, as Gal improves to go into 12th place. So clearly getting some help there with the slipstream from David Q-Pock. This is what the leaderboard looks like then. Bernie's at the top with Lopez in second, Carr in third, with Roke fourth, Chatfield fifth, and then it is Mocho in sixth. Roke improves a little bit but stays in fourth, with Quag in seventh, Q-Pock in eighth, Galloway in ninth, with Willows in 10th, then it is Patel 11th, Gal in 12th, Wilson in 13th, then it is Valdinger in 14th, Kloss 15th, Verderi in 16th, Chung 17th, Perinen is in 18th, with Martins in 19th, Griffiths in 20th, De Rosa 21st, and Sontag in 22nd position. So that's how that one looks there then, as we now go onto the back straight now then, heading towards the final turn. Carl looks like he's had his lap compromised by this train of cars that's formed. We obviously saw a train of cars a little bit earlier on in this practice session, but it seems like a few more cars have now formed a train towards the end of this session. As we now look at Chatfield, who's getting held up by one of the Lamborghinis there. That looks like Rahul Patel that he's currently getting held up by, as Chatfield now then will try and make the move stick on the inside as he prepares to start his lap, and making sure there's no traffic by the time he starts it, as he gets by on Rahul Patel into that final corner. Of course, we know that Patel, along with David Q-Pock, is also linked with a potential move to Sauber in 2023, and of course Japan is also a race that Patel will want to forget about, because he ended up being involved in the first lap collision with Barch's Kloss, and well, he'll want to forget about that one, that is for sure. He's along with obviously potentially staying at Sauber next season. And of course, you also have David Kupok linked. You also have Rahul Patel, who's linked with Sauber, of course. And you've also got the F2 Championship leader, Hento Sononome, who's also linked with a potential move to Sauber in 2023. There are also a few others as well, in case they miss out on seats for 2020, in case they miss out on some of their other options for 2023. You've also got the likes of Gabriel Gomez, who could actually make a return to the team if he misses out on Toyota, of course. And, of course, has Aston Martin as well as an option as well, does Gabriel Gomez, as he's actually got 3 options available to him to try and return to the top class in 2023. But, yeah, that's that, really, as Gal makes his way out of the right-hander. And I think there was also, if I'm not mistaken, there was also Jafari Blackwood as well. I think is also linked with Sauber as well if he misses out on Toyota. And he also has another team as well linked with as well. But I could be a bit... I think that's what I said in the news video anyway, that Blackwood was linked with Sauber as well. So I'm having to remember a lot of things here. So, because there's been... Obviously, with so many sign-ups, it's easy to forget a lot of things. So... that's that, really. But, yeah, we're looking at Griffiths there. He has another lock-up. He's been really struggling in this session, but it seems that on lap time it's not really reflecting it. He is outpacing Sontag in this session. De Rosa not being up to the pace of teammate Joseph Willows at the moment, who's currently just under a second behind Evan Byrne. So Willows currently in the top 10 at the moment in that McLaren, as Griffiths just comes out of the final turn there to complete his next lap, and he's actually coming back into the pits. I wonder if that will be his session done with, because we've only got, what, 5 minutes to go in this practice session before we get on to qualifying in a few minutes' time. As Byrne now then just trying to find a way through on one of the Alpha Tauri drivers now then, that being David Kupok, and not able to find a way through on the German driver at this stage now then, as Byrne tries to find a way through but can't. So that's pretty much that, really, is now Byrne making his way around the long swooping right-hander now. Then we go as Kupok now then looks like he might actually be passed here by Byrne going up towards the right-hander, which he does. So Byrne gets himself through in the Red Bull, as Byrne currently still at the top of the timing sheets, has been at the top for quite a while, has the Irishman, with a 1 minute 28.709. So that's how it currently looks at the moment. As so we now look at Armar Carr, who's trying to find a way through on the Renault here of not sure it is. Oh, this could be a little bit of a problem with the pit lane, but hopefully Carr avoids it, and thankfully he does. He in fact slowed down a bit before then, but Perinen got a little bit compromised there as a result. But I did think for a moment there we were going to have a little bit of a pit lane entrance bug there, but thankfully that didn't happen. Galloway, meanwhile, whilst all that was going on, improved to go up into 5th position. So 5th and 6th so far for the 2 Ferrari drivers. So they've been looking particularly strong so far in practice. Whether that can continue on into qualifying, though, we'll have to wait and see on that one, as Chung now making her way around the right-hander. And so far, Lamborghini this season have scored points in every race so far, although it's fair to say that Chung was a little bit lucky to get points last time out at Japan, because, of course, Chung was running outside the points before Lopez and Gal had their crash at the Degner curves, and she was able to be promoted into 9th place as a result, and was able to continue Lamborghini's point streak that they've currently got at the moment. Whether they can continue that here in Malaysia, it's going to be another question, of course, as Martin's currently holding up one of the Hasses. I think that's Michael Mocho he's currently holding up at this stage, as they now make their way through the right-hander now they're on the racetrack. Through the next right-hander we go, as they now make their way through into the flat-out left and right-hander. Roman Quarg, meanwhile, currently goes up into 6th position now, so he's actually split the 2 Ferrari drivers. A lock-up there for Martins. Of course, we know that Martins is moving to Renault next season. He'll be partnering alongside Roman Quarg next season, meaning, of course, Perinen will be leaving the team at the end of the season. Whether it's with Mercedes or Toyota, we'll have to wait and see with Jesus Perinen, but he is linked with both of those teams, is the Spaniard, of course, who won the Chinese Grand Prix earlier on in the season. But Martins, his lap was compromised, and he's going to remain in 19th after this lap has finished. But yeah, that's that, really, as the Brazilian makes his way into the first couple of corners on the racetrack now then, as we have just under 2.5 minutes to go in this session now then, as Martins comes out of turn 2 and around the long swooping right-hander now then we will go, as the Brazilian driver making his way towards the end of the first sector, but he's 400ths down on his personal best, as we have just over 2 minutes to go now then in this session, so we're getting to the closing stages of this practice session as more cars come in, and I think their session will be done. So I think we're now going to ride on board with the drivers for the remainder of this practice session. Coupart didn't improve though. We're now looking at his fellow compatriot Sontag, who's up on his personal best. Can he get out of last position though? Let's see. As he comes onto the pit straight, Felix Sontag across the line, he will go. And he does. He goes up into 20th position there. So he goes 2 tenths quicker than teammate Griffiths. De Rosa down in last, but he'll give himself at least 2 more laps to try and get out of last position. As we now look at Roman Quagg, is just making his way onto the pit straight now. Then across the line he goes. He does not improve. Jake Galloway now then coming out of the right-hander now then in the Ferrari as he now makes his way onto the back straight now then before approaching the final corner on the racetrack now then. As now Galloway making his way through the final turn and onto the pit straight now then will go the Ferrari driver as he makes his way onto the pit straight. I'm not expecting him to improve on this occasion. He crosses the line and he does not improve. Perrin is finished for the day. He comes back into the pits. Martins comes out of the final turn now then in the Aston Martin. The Brazilian now then making his way onto the pit straight and across the line. He will go, and he does not improve, stays where he is. Valdinger across the line, no improvement for him, as Chatfield making his way around the final turn himself in the Ferrari, just making his way onto the pit straight, and Chatfield now then will come across the line, and he does not improve on that occasion. Here is Miklos Gal with under a minute to go in this session, as he now makes his way towards the final corner. As now, let's see, he's not on an improvement at the moment. Gal currently down in 12th position. So I did notice a little bit earlier on that he actually had a lock-up going through into the final corner a few laps ago, and it cost him a chance of possibly going a little bit higher than 12th, and he stays in 12th as a result. Burner's come back in, so that's his session done with as a result. As now we look at Sontag, who's just coming around the final corner now then in the Williams, making his way onto the pit straight, and Sontag now then will come across the line in the Williams as we've got 21 seconds to go, and Kloss doing enough to do one more lap there. De Rosa up on his personal best. He's now going to cross the line. Can he get out of last place? And he can. He goes up into 20th position. Wilson will get one more lap in before the session comes to a close. Quad crosses the line. 10, 9, 8, and now we have 7, 6, 5,
4, 3, 2, and 1, and that's all for that.
And Roke just about being able to get a lap in there. So Roke will be the last car to cross the line. He only just crossed the line before the checkered flag came out there. So he only just was able to get one more flying lap in before the session came to a close there. So here comes Johannes Martins, who's actually up on his personal best now in this on this lap now. Then let's see if he can get higher than 19th though. Let's see as he makes his way onto the pit straight now then, and Johannes Martins is now going to cross the line, and he improves, but he remains in 19th position. Chatfield looks like he's not improving in the Ferrari now then, as he just makes his way out of the final corner. Onto the pit straight we go, and Chatfield now then across the line, and he does not improve, as Mocho and Chung are just getting some mileage in for both Haas and Lamborghini respectively. Miklos Gal now then making his way towards the final corner on the racetrack now then in the AlphaTauri, just making his way through the final turn, and onto the pit straight now then will go the Hungarian driver, making his way onto the straight, and I'm not expecting him to improve. It looks like he's going to stay in 12th after this session, which he does. Carr looks like he's going to stay in 3rd. Looks like there's no improvement for him on the way, as Amar Carr now then comes across the line, and he does not improve. Joseph Willows currently in 10th position, not on an improvement. He crosses the line and stays in 10th. Verderi currently 16th in the Aston Martin. He makes his way onto the pit straight, and Verderi across the line, and he does not improve. Sontag, no improvement for him. Kloss, no improvement for him either, as we look at Kirishima De Rosa now then in the McLaren now then, as he makes his way onto the pit straight, and he does not improve. Quagg across the line, he will go, currently being chased down by someone. That was Wilson. Roke, here he comes, the last car to cross the line. He is up on his personal best, so let's see if he can possibly try and beat Burn to the top. Roke across the line he goes, and he does indeed go past this right towards the end of the session. So Roke with a 1 minute 28.5, and that is the session done with Roke right at the end snatching the top spot away from his teammate.
Well, that was another shocker, and he's also the second driver who's entered 1 minute 28.
So yeah, that's pretty much that really then. So that's practice done with, of course. Obviously, we're just going to take a little bit of a pause. We'll obviously stop the stream, of course, and then come back with a fresh stream for qualifying. But in the meantime, guys, I've been J97. He's been Hyan, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.